we all appreciate your reporting and we all appreciate your expertise. And so I think today we're going to talk about, we got primaries going on. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to what's going on in Travis County. It's all about the DA race, but there's a lot of primaries going on. I guess there's only one primary, whatever the fuck. I don't know how to phrase it, but Michael and Charles, is there something specific about the primaries that you wanted to open the show with?
I mean, sure. Unless Michael has something, I got something. But I just kind of want to get Brad Johnson's initial lay of the land, because you have spent, I think a lot of people report on this stuff and talk about it, but they don't actually go places. And with the Brent Money, Jill Dutton race, you were there. I remember you were reporting, like boxes coming in with like 3 votes because you were the only one sitting there as they were bringing them in. So you've seen a lot of the stuff on the ground. And so I'm curious kind of just what your kind of general lay of the land is. And I think we know some of the overarching narratives about how people are feeling and stuff, but what are you seeing as you're out there talking to people and kind of going across the state?
Well, it's definitely the most contentious primary I've ever seen. You have these competing headwinds, the impeachment, Attorney General Paxton going on his revenge tour against that, Governor Greg Abbott's school choice crusade, those in close to 30 races at least, they're going directly against each other in some of these House primaries. Then you got Lieutenant Governor Patrick wading in, especially in opposition to the Speaker of the House. And Speaker Dade Phelan is facing the toughest challenge he's had so far in elected office from David Covey. You have a lot of that itself is kind of a proxy for the broader political fight over the direction of the GOP in Texas. And Phelan has been made, rightly or wrongly, different sides will disagree on that, but he's been made the boogeyman for all of the grievances. I guess they're broadly described as the grassroots in the Republican Party I don't know if that's entirely descriptive, because there's a lot of disagreement in each of these factions, but there is a massive fight over the direction of the party right now. And because they control every part of the legislative process, every executive office in the state, it's one party control, and therefore that's where the fights happen. We see that during the legislature when policy's on the table, and we're seeing that in elections now.
Brad, let me ask you. So there's two. You say there's sort of 2 directions that things are going here. 2 possible directions. What directions are those? Is it like MAGA versus neocon, or is it more specific to Texas?
I think it generally comes down to establishment versus those not in the establishment. Now, being in Texas, the establishment does not have the same connotation as it does, let's say, in DC. I'd say some would make that case. I think it's a bit more complicated than that. You've got someone like Briscoe Cain, who would be considered part of the establishment here, and he's very conservative, one of the most conservative members in terms of vote record every session. But he's facing a challenge. I think you could say maybe from the right, but not that far. It's mainly on his support for impeachment and being one of the members of the board of managers during that trial. There's just a lot of different fractures going on. And I think broadly it comes down to the legislature versus the party apparatus itself. And you see Matt Rinaldi out there, Texas GOP chair, endorsing against Speaker Phelan. But then you also have him more aligned with Dan Patrick. I wouldn't say there's 2 different directions, but there's a lot of different competing headwinds that are trying to jockey for, an inch of ground here in this trench warfare.
Yeah, it's a power struggle for sure, but the lines are blurry, to say the least. Hey, 2 questions real quick. I've been talking to a lot of people involved in the primaries, and some of them say to me that impeachment, nobody's talking about it in the field. Like, it's not an actual issue. So one, respond to that. And then the second is kind of a curveball. What are Democrats thinking of this? Have you, like, Democrat state house reps? Because it's pretty quiet over there outside of the theory race. And I'm just curious what kind of their perspective of it is, if you have any insight there.
So on the first part, Impeachment is definitely an issue. I've seen people discuss it all over the place. I went to an HG33 forum. That's Justin Holland against Katrina Pearson and Dennis London. That was definitely an issue there, but I don't think it was the biggest one. I think we're starting to see, and you can see this with the messaging that a lot of these candidates, both the incumbents and the challengers, have taken. Instead of focusing on school choice heavily or impeachment, it's the border. And that's happening on both sides. You see these, some incumbents, Travis Clardy comes to mind, Drew Darby, I think, ran this messaging, tying the opposition to the school choice plan to education funding for illegal immigrants. That just shows the prominence of the border issue, I think. And both sides are trying to use that to their advantage. It's just odd seeing this one thing. Normally you try and find a wedge issue, right? But the border is just all encompassing right now. And, Governor Abbott has been big on that. He's become the face of the border resistance, I think, and among Republicans in the country. So that's an interesting dynamic that I think I didn't expect to see. I thought we'd see, the two pillars of impeachment and school choice be the top two. On the Democratic side, they're definitely loving this infighting. That's for sure. But they do have some infighting of their own. You mentioned Sean Theory. I think polling came out yesterday, the day before. The showed are actually kind of up comfortably. Now, not quite over 50% to avoid a runoff, but a lot of people were thinking that one especially is going to be really tight because of mainly the two votes she took in favor of the Reader Act, which was the porn in schools bill, and then the gender modification ban. And she bucked her party on both of those and, voted with Republicans on that. And, she's facing a contentious fight there. I think she got censured by a couple county GOPs down there, or maybe it's just one. But the progressive wing is definitely going after her. And so far, if I trust Mark Jones's polling more than almost anybody else, so that's probably a pretty good gauge where the primary fight in that one is. But overall, Democrats are loving this. And the question is, can they overcome the border issue itself when we get to the general? It's a bad issue for them, and they know it.
Yeah.
Continue. I mean, I guess maybe this transitions a bit from the primaries, and I don't want to go too far from it, but I'm curious your thought. And I think I originally saw these poll numbers because you shared them. There was a poll last week that came out that showed Allred and Cruz kind of neck and neck in a matchup of a general. So I guess kind of what's your take on that? What are you hearing out there? Are the Cruz people seemingly taking that seriously? Clearly, I think I also saw from your Twitter feed that Allred's team was just fundraising like crazily, probably in large part based off of that. So clearly they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, that was an odd poll, and it especially was odd based on who did it. It was National Public Affairs, which, based on just looking at open secrets, they're more of a GOP firm, it seems. And so you think they wouldn't be slanted toward, a more Democratic favorable sample. Maybe it just happened that way. There may not have been any nefariousness involved in that. It just happens, right? But then you saw UT put out a poll, and it had Cruz up 14 on both Allred and Gutierrez, with Allred way up in the primary. So I would lean more on that, I think, as far as validity, the UT poll, just because that reflects the broader base of polling that we've seen so far. It's not a Beto Cruz really tight matchup, I don't think. But Allred has done very well on fundraising, not quite as well as Beto did in 18, but he's making it quite competitive in terms of that, of money. It's just, I don't know. We're still a long way out from the general on that one.
So, I mean, I'm going to share my screen here. We got Colin Allred, and I see these posts from him. They're ads all the time, and he's begging for money, and it just seems so desperate every time he does it. And you talk about, he's doing well on fundraising. Well, he's spending all his money asking for money, so he better be doing well. But he says, what if I told you Ted Cruz has mega donors funneling millions of dollars into his campaign war chest, and then I'm depending on your donation today to keep up. Please, this is our best chance to finally give Texans the leadership we deserve. Give whatever you can today. And it just sounds so, every time I see one of these ads, it sounds pathetic. And I don't know why. He's just begging for it, making it seem like he can't raise any money, and Ted Cruz is just whooping him. And I don't know. I guess it's working. Maybe I'm wrong. Anybody?
I think you got to spend money to make money, right? And I think he's been doing that.
I don't know.
And I think when you look at some of these, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Ruben Gallego's doing the same thing in Arizona right now in the Kerry Lake race, saying he's got ads that say he's down 6 points, and I think they're actually capitalizing. The Democrats are capitalizing on the lack of enthusiasm for Biden or their candidates to raise money. It's good strategy.
And also, I was just going to say, I think a lot of times when you look at these like very dramatic messages, they seem to work. I always get the ones, or I used to get the ones from Trump that'd be like, I just heard that you didn't give, like, you're not one of my top 10 fans anymore. Like, rush $100 donation right now. And I think the GOP put out one the other day on Twitter where it was like, like, friends, we're in trouble. Like, we've got to get this money. And I think a lot of people end up falling for that stuff and maybe give them money. But clearly, whatever strategy Colin Allred has is working for him.
Do those things work? I mean, I get those same emails and text messages from Trump, like, you're my favorite voter or whatever the hell.
My favorite patriot.
Yeah, you're my favorite patriot. Come, did you donate this month or whatever? And I'm just like, stop it.
They would keep sending them if somebody didn't rush a donation after they saw that.
I mean, I don't know. Would they stop? Well, I think they would still do it even if it didn't work. They do stuff that doesn't work all the time.
That's true. That's fair.
Well, somebody keeps falling for the Nigerian prince bit. That's just so overdone. So
there you go. People do that. That's usually old people, I think. No,
I have a funny story about that.
Are you a Nigerian prince?
No. I'm not going to tell the story on here. I'll tell you after.
Real quick.
No, I'm not a Nigerian prince. We got.
Real quick before we move off Texas primaries, I'm looking at these races where you've got Abbott, Paxton, Trump, like the whole Patrick, all on the same side. I'm thinking in the Mike Alcott race. I think Hillary Hickland, Helen Kerwin, and they're going against Rogers, Shine, and Burns. That's like really high stakes. Like they have to win those. Could you imagine that narrative after the primary if they don't win those and then they're trying to get school choice done next session? Do you have any insights there or thoughts on those races where they're all on the same side?
Yeah, well, Abbott is rolling the dice here. He's pissing off a lot of incumbent Republicans basically beyond reproach. It's not, if they remain in office, they're going to dig their heels in even more on school choice, or against it. So he's gambling there, and he's got to win those. He's got to win enough to make the math worth it. But in the HC2 special, Brent Money had basically all the endorsements, and Jill Dutton edged out a very narrow win. So that right there, that's the only thing we have to go on so far. It's not a good testament for the effectiveness of these endorsements, but it was also a special runoff. So like it's kind of an anomaly in itself. But yeah, we're gonna see just how effective these have been. If they have an Abbott endorsement, everyone's slapping a picture of them and the governor on mail pieces, and they're banking on the fact that he's very popular right now. Look at all the favorable and unfavorable ratings that he's getting. He's leading the pack in all of the incumbents. So if anyone's going to have an effect on this, it's probably Abbott, and that's what he's banking on.
Can I say, this endorsement, it seems like there's a lot of controversy around endorsements and people saying they have endorsements when they don't have endorsements. And I was shared this in a Twitter message group that I'm a part of. So it's not mine, but here's Ellen Troxclair. Everyone knows Ellen Troxclair. She says she endorses me as her favorite podcaster, by the way. And I just wanted to point this out for Biederman because he got in trouble. You can't really see my cursor that well, but it's right there. He got in trouble, right? Am I mistaken that he said that he was endorsed by Greg Abbott, but he wasn't? Greg Abbott sent him a cease and desist letter. Is that right? Correct?
Yeah, that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, at the forum this week that I went to, he addressed it and said, well, it was just, I served 6 years in the legislature and got a lot done with the governor. So it wasn't me claiming an endorsement. It was just me showing the fact that we've been on the same side about things previously. But, when this is sent to a voter who doesn't know really anything about the kinds of stuff that, I'm watching constantly just because that's my job. They have their own lives to worry about. It definitely looks like trying to insinuate an endorsement. Same with that Trump one right there.
That's what I'm getting to. I mean, Ellen is like really pushing. All right, I was endorsed by Greg Abbott. You can see it in all these flyers. That's great. But then here's Kyle Biederman. He's the only candidate in this race to proudly endorse President Donald J. Trump. So he's advertising the fact that he endorsed Trump, and it's really making it seem like Trump endorsed him. That's what he's doing, right? That's what everyone else is seeing.
Yeah.
And it works. I mean, it works, does it?
Yeah,
probably.
To some.
It's not. He ain't lying. Well, I don't know. Maybe Ellen Troxclair has not endorsed President Trump, and if she didn't, who cares? I don't care. But I think that's a pretty sly trick that Biederman's pulling there. Why is he doing all that stuff? Why is he pretending to be endorsed, and why is he saying I endorsed Trump in an effort to say that Trump endorsed him?
Well, by the time usually that it's figured out, the damage has already been done, right? The voters already seen the mail piece well before the cease and desist letter goes out. It's kind of underhanded, but it's probably effective, I think.
And probably more people are going to see that in their inbox, and they're going to see Abbott's, tweet of the cease and desist letter or something, So even if they do see it, like you said, it's going to be well beyond that. But that's if they see it to begin with.
Yeah, it's the same principle as a retraction in a news story, right? It's like the damage is already done before the retraction is made. And there's been a lot of wild stuff going on in HD19, and I'm obviously not impartial here, as Ellen Troxclair is my friend, and but there's been quite a bit of underhanded stuff going on over there. That's just campaign, 101.
I have a question of still on primaries. Really curious about this because you guys, I think, have been have played a really big part in putting information out about this. But the Court of Criminal Appeals stuff, I'm just kind of curious. I know you guys sat down with Judge Slaughter. I guess this was probably a year ago now, and did a really good video. I thought it was really good. I watched it myself, kind of explaining the decision. And I guess I'm going to let you kind of frame it. I don't want to misspeak on kind of what this overall fight is, but if you could talk a little bit about that, I think it'd be really, really good.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird situation with you have Donald Trump Jr. weighing in on a Court of Criminal Appeals race. That's just wild. So it focuses on this ruling issued by the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the highest court in the state on criminal matters. It's kind of even with the Supreme Court of Texas, which its jurisdiction is civil matters. And so the court issued a ruling, and I don't know all the intricacies of it. Matt, who did the interview, knows it far better than I do. But basically it found that the Texas Constitution narrowly prescribes the ability to prosecute election fraud with county DAs. And the Attorney General can be invited in by these DAs to prosecute, but he can't do it himself. And this has become a lightning rod issue, especially for Paxton. He's campaigning in all these races on it, and especially in these CCA races. There's 3 judges up for re-election, one of whom is Michelle Slaughter, the one that was interviewed by my colleague, and she wrote the opinion, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. And it's taken on a life of its own, I think. Slaughter's position is that this is the originalist position, that the Constitution does not explicitly prescribe the ability to prosecute these election offenses with the Attorney General. The Attorney General contends that, well, it's been that way for decades, and courts have not ruled this way until now. and this has taken away my ability to prosecute election fraud. I hope that explains it. I don't know like the legal back and forth as much as someone else, but that's as far as I know.
No, I think that's generally how I understood it too. And I'm just curious though, because with this being, I mean, usually, especially in Harris County, I voted yesterday. We have a 61-page ballot with like 1.5 million judge races. Is it resonating? Are people paying attention to it? I mean, usually that court and every other court are just such low-profile races for the average person. Are they really kind of sinking their teeth into this because of how much he's been hammering that, or is it still not resonating?
I think it's probably too difficult for anyone to really understand fully. Now, the way the Attorney General is framing it, it's this court took away my ability to keep our elections secure, essentially. And that's a much simpler message, and that's what he's deploying here. I don't know. I personally think that impeachment probably has more resonance than this does. But the thing is, the CCA had nothing to do with impeachment. So on those races specifically, this is the wedge issue. And we've seen Michelle Slaughter hit back quite a bit, especially on Twitter. In our podcast interview, she did as well. I don't know if anybody's seeing that, and good luck trying to combat a mailer that says your judge took away my ability to prosecute election fraud with a really nuanced, take on a competing mailer. I don't think that's doable. So, but then again, how many people are actually going to get down to the CCA judges and vote on that, right?
Yeah,
I don't know how many people will understand what the heck it even is. Probably fairly small in terms of who's going to cast a ballot for president. So
fair.
What do you think? I'm looking at some of your articles here on the Texan.news. See, another plug. Pay me. You got this. Trump is up 71 points on Haley in Texas primary poll, and 7 points on Biden in general election. And we all expect that. We all expect that Trump is going to win Texas, both in the primaries and the general, right? Texas, of course. Why do you think Haley's still in this?
I think
put on your tinfoil hat if you need to. This is a safe space.
Yeah. I think her gamble is that something happens with the legal issues and makes him ineligible to run, and then she's the only one standing to be the last option.
But she does have she's getting some very wealthy people who presumably in wealth and IQ don't necessarily always go together. But I think that it's it's pretty good correlation. If you got a lot of money that you made yourself, you're probably a pretty smart guy or girl. Sorry. And you probably have people that are advising you on how to spend your money and everything like that. And we all know that the wealthy have inside lines into what's going on in America that we don't have, right? They know what's happening. Why are they giving money to Haley? Do they know something we don't?
My read on it is they see Donald Trump as a sure loss against Biden in November, which I don't know if that's the case. I mean, this is just such a weird election, but there is a sizable portion of the donor class who thinks Trump is a very flawed candidate, which he obviously is. Whether he, is effective is a totally different question. But they see the flaws and they think that the only way forward is someone new. And I think it also goes back to this competition between different factions within the party. Haley represents the more traditionally Republican establishment base, I'd say. Trump is very much not that. And so they're kind of hedging their bets on some wild card changing the calculus on this thing.
I mean, they are spending a lot of money on those hedge bets. A lot. Right? And okay, maybe they think that Trump can't beat Biden in the general, but he's going to beat Haley.
Well, that's not what Brad's saying. I think, right, Brad? I think you're saying essentially that.
Stop. Stop. Something's going on with your microphone.
Oh, really?
That's better. I don't know what you did. It was like Sounded like you were holding it inside your mouth. There it goes again. I don't know what's happening.
I can maybe pick up.
Hold on.
I think,
I don't know.
I think it's more cynical. I think it's more cynical than that. I actually think it's just a resource drain effort. If she stays in the primary, in particular in South Carolina, New Hampshire, Iowa, not so much Texas, but he has to spend some amount of resources and energy on getting voters out, and they're just taking his money away. I think that's it. I don't know that there's any insider information about which is what Swale is implying, that they have insider information that Trump's not going to be on the ballot come November.
I don't know.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
yes.
We could hear you before, but it sounded like your microphone was like you were. I'll try not to be crude.
Okay, I'm just saying, did it not sound? All right, can you understand what I'm saying though? Is all I'm asking. Yes.
Well, I couldn't. It was bad. But start over.
No, now. So anyway, okay. So I think if I'm not mistaken, I think what Brad Johnson is saying is that, which I've heard before, is that Haley is kind of just sitting around trying to stay in to be the last man standing if Trump is, indicted and found guilty, or God forbid something happens with both of their health, or like whatever. She's still there, and she's like, you didn't pick me, but I'm left because you don't have the candidate of your choice, and now you have to go with me. And I mean, with 91 charges against him, like I like, it's not a bad. Like I'd probably be like, let me stick this out too.
Can we put on our, let's open our third eye and try to, try to predict what might happen, right? Okay, Trump is off the ballot for whatever reason. He dies from a heart attack, is what apparently Charles wants to happen, or he gets indicted. And he's not eligible to run for whatever reason. So the last choice for Republicans is Nikki Haley. What the hell happens then? RFK wins, Libertarian finally gets like some significant amount, or Biden just trounces him. Because no one likes Haley. No one likes her.
I don't know that she automatically gets the nomination. You still got to cobble together enough delegates at the convention to get the nomination of the party. So just because she's the only one currently running, I don't think that assumes she gets all the delegates. I don't know though. How does Texas work?
I don't know. I don't think she would naturally just like assume office from that, but I do think that she would have a case being the last one standing, be like, yeah, I might not have been the number one pick, but clearly I'm the number two pick. So now you should make me the number one pick. Like, I feel like that's a good platform to go off of. If it's successful or not, it's a whole other question. But
I'm the best loser. That's a good platform.
Exactly. Well, no, I think it's actually sad, but I think it's a smart move if you're really just desperate to be president. Like, I think that's
Brad, what do you think?
Well, you mentioned the poll. The thing I thought was most interesting in that poll is that Haley was down, I think, 9 to Biden in a general election in Texas. That's just crazy. I mean,
what?
You put standard Republican in, and they're going to beat Biden in Texas, but Haley's down. I don't know if that's just disdain for her still being in the race with Trump. That may well be, but that was shocking to me. The other gamble I think she's probably taking is on top of trying to be the last man standing. Campaign apparatuses you can't just create them like that. So if for some reason Trump does get removed from the ballot for whatever reason, her apparatus will still be operational and running, or at least that's the hope she has. And whoever else would be drafted to kind of take the mantle of the Trump wing of the party, they'd have to either just take Trump's campaign from infrastructure from that, or start anew, and that would give her an advantage with something already in place.
Yeah, we're talking uncharted territory. I don't know. We don't have super delegates in the Republican Party like the Democrats do, so you can't. So does the person with the second most delegates become the presumptive candidate when the person with the most delegates falls off? I have no idea.
Didn't it happen in 2016 when Trump won? Like, people were talking about like the delegates not selecting him, even though he won. So can't that happen?
The rogue elector thing, or whatever that
Rogue
was.
electors, yeah,
So they were saying.
ominous.
I mean, anything could happen. We're already in uncharted territory. I mean, how many times have we had a presidential candidate with 91 charges? I mean, we're already in this uncharted territory. We're well into it. We've been in it for like 8 years.
I think I think that violence happens if Trump get off the ballot. I don't want it to happen. FBI agent who listens to the show, I don't want it to happen. I'm saying I think it happens. I'm not encouraging it. Anything else you want to talk about this? Do y'all want to do some potpourri?
Oh, yeah, sure. We can do potpourri.
We can talk about this more, Charles.
I was going to talk about the Trump thing. I was going to ask Brad his thoughts on kind of overall turnout so far.
Oh, well, let's do that and then we'll do potpourri. I don't mean to be so abrupt.
Right. Yeah, Brad, any thoughts on turnout? I know I again saw you share Derek Ryan's report, but kind of what are you gleaning from that and from other stuff that you're hearing?
Well, I'm kind of tracking day by day, not as sophisticated as Derek does. So definitely find his stuff if that so interests you. It's obviously way up from the midterm from 22, which is kind of a given. You know, it's a presidential year. That's of course going to happen. From the numbers I've been seeing, it's pretty on par with 2020, which I'm not sure how to think about that because 2020 was such a weird year with the pandemic, obviously. But Texas did get its primary in before everything really shut down. I think things really hit the fan in mid-March, and the primary was March 1st, I believe. So maybe it was more of a regular year in terms of elections and turnout just for that primary. But you see Democrats having a lot lower turnout than they did in 2020 so far, and Republicans are up. So even though total the margins are kind of the same, the percentages are relatively similar, Republican turnout's way up given the the actually contested primary on the ballot. Democrats, meanwhile, have the reverse. I mean, really, there's Marianne Williamson that's running against Biden. Who else? I don't know. Maybe her Houston enclave draws some support down in Charles's neck of the woods.
I am a Marianne Williamson fan.
Yeah. So overall, we're gonna have to have a lot more data to really know. But it just kind of seems the roles are reversed given the incumbent Democrat in the White House and the contested Republican primary. So that's my read on it so far.
Cool. Brad, go ahead with your potpourri. Brad Swale.
Well, which one do you want to do? You want to